The moment Jessica Hart's plane touched down in Santorini, she made a promise to herself that this would be different. No work emails. No thinking about the gallery opening next month. No obsessing over whether she'd made the right choice leaving her position at the Boston Museum of Fine Arts to open her own art consultancy. Just 10 days of Greek sunshine, good wine, and absolutely zero responsibility. She hadn't expected the taxi driver to take her to the wrong villa. "This cannot be right," Jessica said, staring at the sprawling white structure perched on the cliff's edge. The place she'd booked was supposed to be cozy, a modest rental with a view. This looked like something out of Architectural Digest. "I reserved the small cottage, number 17. The driver checked his phone, shrugged, and pointed at the brass numbers beside the gate. 17. "Is correct, miss. You have good luck, I think." Jessica paid him and wheeled her suitcase up the stone pathway, her heart hammering. Someone had clearly made a mistake, but she was too exhausted from 14 hours of travel to care. She'd call the rental company in the morning and sort it out. Right now, all she wanted was a shower and a bed. The key code worked. That was promising. She stepped inside and gasped. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the caldera, the sapphire water so vivid it almost hurt to look at. White marble floors gleamed under her feet. The furniture was all clean lines and expensive fabrics. Fresh flowers sat on the dining table, and there was a bottle of champagne chilling in a silver bucket. This was definitely not her rental. Jessica pulled out her phone to call the agency, but there was a note beside the champagne. "Welcome to Villa Artemis. We hope you enjoy your stay." Nothing else. No name, no explanation. She was still standing there, confused and slightly concerned about how much this mistake might cost her, when she heard footsteps on the terrace. A man appeared in the doorway, and Jessica's breath caught. He was tall, easily over 6 feet, with dark hair that looked like he'd been running his hands through it, and the kind of stubble that suggested he'd stopped caring about perfect grooming. He wore linen pants and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, and he was staring at her with the same confusion she felt. "Who are you?" they said simultaneously. He recovered first. "I'm Bennett Xavier. I own this villa." Jessica's stomach dropped. "Oh God, I'm so sorry." The taxi driver said this was number 17. "I have a reservation, but clearly not for this place. I'll leave right now." "Wait." He held up a hand, and she noticed how tan it was, how capable his fingers looked. "What number were you supposed to be at?" 17. Villa Helios. Bennett pulled out his phone and typed something. His eyebrows rose. "Villa Helios is on the other side of the island. Your booking confirmation should have had that address." "Let me check." Jessica scrolled through her emails and her heart sank. "It does. I just saw 17 and assumed." "I'm an idiot. You're tired." His voice was kinder than she expected. "It's almost midnight. The rental office won't be open until tomorrow anyway. I'll get a hotel. Everything's booked. Festival season." He studied her for a moment, and she felt absurdly self-conscious in her rumpled travel clothes, her blonde hair falling out of its ponytail. "Look, this place has 4 bedrooms. Take one for the night. In the morning, I'll drive you to your actual villa." Jessica knew she should refuse. You didn't accept invitations from strange men, even gorgeous ones with kind eyes and expensive real estate. But exhaustion was making her bones ache, and the thought of dragging her suitcase back down that path to find a taxi at midnight made her want to cry. "Are you sure? I don't want to impose." "You're not. I'm here alone and I could use the company, honestly." He smiled, and it transformed his whole face. "I'm Bennett, by the way. People call me Ben." "Jessica, Jess." "Nice to meet you, Jess, even if you did break into my house." She laughed despite herself. "I didn't break in. I had the code." "Fair point. Come on, I'll show you to a room." The guest suite was bigger than Jessica's entire apartment in Boston. The bed looked like a cloud, and the bathroom had a tub with a view of the sea. She wanted to collapse into it and never leave. "There are towels in the cabinet," Ben said from the doorway. "Help yourself to anything in the kitchen if you're hungry. I'll be up for a while if you need anything." "Thank you, really. This is incredibly kind," he shrugged. "It's just a room. Sleep well, Jessica." She did, better than she had in months. When she woke, sunlight was streaming through the gauzy curtains, and she could hear the distant sound of waves. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then it all came rushing back: the wrong villa, the handsome stranger, her mortification. Jessica showered quickly and dressed in a sundress, then ventured out to find Ben. He was on the terrace, sitting at a table laden with food. Fresh bread, local cheese, olives, yogurt with honey, fruit that looked like it had been picked that morning. He was reading something on his tablet, a cup of coffee in his hand, and he looked so natural there that Jessica felt another wave of embarrassment at her intrusion. "Morning," he said, looking up. "I wasn't sure what you liked, so I got a bit of everything. You didn't have to do this." "I was ordering breakfast anyway. Sit." The view from the terrace was even more spectacular in daylight. The white buildings of the village tumbled down the cliff, and boats dotted the water far below. Jessica poured herself coffee and tried not to stare at Ben, who looked unfairly good in the morning light. "So what brings you to Santorini?" he asked. "Escape. I've been working too hard, and my best friend finally convinced me I needed a vacation. You, same actually. I've been traveling for the past month. Just needed somewhere quiet to think. Mission accomplished. This place is stunning. I bought it 2 years ago. Haven't spent nearly enough time here." He paused. "What do you do when you're not accidentally breaking into vacation homes?" Jessica laughed. "I'm an art consultant. I help private collectors and companies acquire pieces, manage their collections. I just started my own business a few months ago." "That sounds fascinating. How did you get into it?" They talked through breakfast, and Jessica was surprised by how easy it was. Ben asked good questions and actually listened to her answers. He told her he worked in real estate development, that he'd built his company from nothing over the past decade, but he didn't boast about it. There was a tiredness around his eyes that she recognized, the exhaustion of someone who'd been running too hard for too long. "I should call the rental agency," Jessica said finally, reluctantly. "Get out of your hair. No rush, but I'll drive you whenever you're ready." The rental agency was apologetic and promised that Villa Helios would be ready by 2. Ben insisted on taking her to lunch in the village while they waited. They wandered through narrow streets, past shops selling jewelry and pottery, and ended up at a tiny taverna with tables overlooking the water. "This is one of my favorite spots," Ben said. "The owner makes the best moussaka on the island." He was right. The food was incredible and the wine was even better. Jessica felt herself relaxing in a way she hadn't in years. Maybe it was the setting, or maybe it was the company. Ben was funny and thoughtful, and there was something solid about him that made her feel safe. "Can I ask you something?" she said as they shared a slice of baklava. "Why are you here alone? I don't mean that in a judgmental way, it's just, you seem like someone who'd have people around." Ben was quiet for a moment. "I was supposed to come with someone, my girlfriend, ex-girlfriend now. We broke up 3 weeks ago. I'm sorry. Don't be. It wasn't right. We both knew it, but neither of us wanted to admit we were staying together out of convenience more than anything else." She was the one who finally ended it, and she was right to. He met Jessica's eyes. "What about you? Anyone waiting for you back in Boston?" "No. I was engaged last year, actually. Called it off 6 months before the wedding. That must have been hard." "It was the right decision. He wanted me to give up the idea of my own business, to stay at the museum where things were stable and predictable. He didn't understand why I needed to take the risk. Jessica surprised herself by continuing. Everyone thought I was crazy. The job at the museum was prestigious, the pay was good, and Derek was a lawyer from a good family. On paper, it was perfect. But life's not lived on paper. Exactly, she smiled at him. You get it, I do. They sat there for a while, watching tourists stream past, boats bobbing in the harbor below. Jessica didn't want the afternoon to end, which was ridiculous. She'd known this man for less than 24 hours. Villa Helios was charming in its own way, much smaller than Ben's place but comfortable. He helped her carry her suitcase inside, checked that everything was working properly, and wrote his phone number on a piece of paper. In case you need anything, he said, or if you want company. I know you came here to relax, but if you get bored of your own company, I'm around. Thank you for everything. Ben hesitated at the door, and Jessica thought for a wild moment that he might kiss her. Instead, he just smiled. Enjoy your vacation, Jessica Hart. She watched him drive away and told herself she was being ridiculous. She'd come here to decompress, not to develop a crush on a stranger. Even a kind, gorgeous stranger who made her laugh and listened when she talked and had eyes that seemed to see right through her. Jessica spent the rest of the afternoon unpacking and exploring her villa. It really was lovely, and the location was perfect, close enough to the village to walk but far enough for privacy. She should have been thrilled. Instead, she kept thinking about Ben. She lasted 2 days before she texted him. Any recommendations for good hiking trails? His response came within minutes. Several. Want a guide? They met the next morning, and Ben took her on a trail that wound along the coast, past ancient churches and terraced gardens. He pointed out local plants, told her stories about the island's history, and made her laugh with tales of his early business ventures that had gone spectacularly wrong. I once tried to flip a house in Brooklyn, he said as they paused to catch their breath at a viewpoint. Thought I knew what I was doing. Turned out the whole foundation was shot, lost $30,000 in a month. Ouch. What did you do? Learned my lesson. Did about a year of grunt work on construction sites, learned how buildings actually went together. Then tried again, smarter this time. How old were you? 22. Young and stupid and convinced I was going to conquer the world. Jessica studied him. You've done pretty well for yourself. I've been lucky and I've worked hard, but yeah, it's worked out. He turned to look at her. What about you? Any spectacular failures in your past? My first job out of grad school, I authenticated a painting as a genuine Vermeer, staked my reputation on it. Turned out to be a very good forgery from the 1940s. What happened? I was mortified, almost quit. But my mentor sat me down and told me that if I wasn't making mistakes, I wasn't taking risks. The painting was good enough to fool people with decades more experience than me. I learned from it, and I never made that particular mistake again. Smart mentor, she was, still is. She's one of the reasons I had the courage to start my own business. They hiked for hours, talking about everything and nothing. Jessica learned that Ben was 32, that he had a younger sister who taught kindergarten in Chicago, that he'd lost his father to a heart attack 3 years ago and still missed him every day. She told him about growing up in Connecticut, about the summer she'd spent in Florence during college that had made her fall in love with art, about her best friend Maya, who was a pediatric surgeon and the most competent person she'd ever met. By the time they made it back to the village, it was late afternoon. They were both sunburned and dusty, and Jessica's legs ached in the best way. Dinner? Ben asked. There's a place that does incredible seafood. I'd love that. They ended up at a restaurant built into the cliff, with tables arranged on multiple levels and lanterns strung overhead. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink and orange that seemed impossible. Jessica ordered grilled octopus and a Greek salad, and Ben got the catch of the day. "This is perfect," she said, sipping her wine. "Thank you for today. Thank you. I've been here 3 weeks and I've barely left the villa. It's nice to actually see the island. Why haven't you been exploring?" Ben was quiet for a moment. "Honestly, I came here to figure out what I wanted. The breakup, losing the relationship even though it wasn't right, it made me realize I've spent the last 10 years just building. The company, the reputation, the portfolio. I haven't stopped to think about what it's all for. Have you figured it out? I'm getting there. Being here helps. Slowing down, remembering there's more to life than the next deal." He met her eyes across the table, and there was something intense in his gaze that made her breath catch. "Meeting you helps too. Ben, I know, you're on vacation. You live in Boston, I live in New York. This isn't the time or place, but I like you, Jessica. More than I've liked anyone in a long time." Her heart was racing. "I like you too. So what do we do about it? I don't know. I'm here for 8 more days. That's 8 days more than nothing." Jessica knew she should be cautious. She'd just gotten out of a relationship. She was supposed to be focusing on her business. Getting involved with someone now was complicated and probably unwise. But sitting across from Ben, watching the way the candlelight played across his features, feeling the warmth of his attention focused entirely on her, she couldn't remember why any of that mattered. "Let's take it a day at a time," she said finally. "See what happens." Ben's smile was slow and genuine. "I can work with that." They stayed at the restaurant until it closed, talking and laughing and sharing dessert. When Ben walked her back to her villa, he took her hand, and the simple gesture felt momentous. At her door, he kissed her cheek, his lips warm against her skin. "Sleep well, Jess. You too." She watched him drive away and touched her cheek where his lips had been, already counting the hours until she'd see him again. The next week passed in a blur of sun-soaked days and long evenings. They went sailing on a boat Ben chartered, and he taught her the basics of navigating while she tried not to be distracted by the way his arms looked when he hauled on the rigging. They explored the archaeological sites, and Jessica talked about Roman art and Greek pottery, while Ben asked questions that showed he was really listening. They found a tiny beach accessible only by a steep path, and spent an afternoon swimming in water so clear she could see fish darting around her feet. They didn't rush into bed, even though Jessica wanted to. There was something sweet about the anticipation, the way Ben would kiss her goodnight but never push for more. He held her hand as they walked through the village. He touched the small of her back when they navigated crowds. He looked at her like she was the most interesting person he'd ever met. On her 8th night, they cooked dinner at his villa. Ben, it turned out, was a surprisingly good cook. He made pasta with fresh tomatoes and herbs from his garden, and they ate on the terrace under the stars. "I don't want you to leave," he said as they cleared the dishes. Jessica's chest tightened. "I don't want to leave either, so don't. Stay longer. Ben, I have clients, I have an apartment and a business and a life. I know, I'm not asking you to abandon your life, I'm just asking for more time. What happens after that?" "Eventually, we both have to go home. You're in New York, I'm in Boston. That's a 4-hour drive. That's manageable." "Is it? We've known each other for just over a week. This could just be a vacation thing. The island, the romance of it all, it might not survive reality." Ben set down the plate he was holding and turned to face her fully. "Do you really believe that?" Jessica wanted to say yes. It would be easier, safer. But looking at him, remembering every conversation and every laugh and every moment they'd shared, she couldn't lie. "No," she admitted. "I don't. But I'm scared. Me too." He stepped closer and she could feel the warmth radiating off him. "I'm terrified, actually. The last relationship I had, we were together for 3 years and I never felt half of what I feel when I'm with you. That's insane, right? It's been a week. Completely insane. But it's true, and I think you feel it too. She did. God help her, she did. Yes. Ben cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing her cheekbones. Then let's be insane together, stay a few more days, and when we do leave, we figure out how to make this work. What if we can't? What if we can? He kissed her then, really kissed her, and Jessica forgot every reason why this was a bad idea. His mouth was warm and sure, and he kissed like he did everything else with complete focus, like she was the only thing that mattered in the world. She wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him back, pouring everything she felt into it. They stumbled to the couch, mouths still locked together. Ben's hands were in her hair, and she was tugging at his shirt, desperate to feel his skin. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "Stay tonight," he said. "Not just for this. Stay because I'm not ready to say goodbye yet." "Okay," Jessica whispered. "Okay." They made love slowly, learning each other, and it felt like something sacred. Afterward, they lay tangled together in Ben's bed, the gauze curtains billowing in the breeze from the open windows. "I need to tell you something," Ben said, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "About my work." "Okay." "I said I was in real estate development, which is true. But I didn't tell you the whole story. My company is pretty big. We've done projects all over the country, office buildings, residential complexes, mixed-use developments. I've done well. Very well." Jessica propped herself up on one elbow to look at him. "How well?" "The business is worth about 200 million. My personal net worth is somewhere north of 80 million, she blinked. "That's very well. I should have told you sooner. I just liked that you didn't know, that you liked me for me, not because of what I've built or what I have." "Ben, I don't care about the money. I know. That's why I'm telling you now, because I trust you. And because if we're going to try to make this work, I need you to know everything." Jessica lay back down, her head on his chest. His heart beat steadily beneath her ear. "My business is doing okay, but I'm not rich, not even close. I don't care. I know. But I need you to know that I'm not looking for someone to take care of me. I need to make my business work on my own. I wouldn't expect anything else." He kissed the top of her head. "We're quite a pair, aren't we?" "Yeah, I think we might be." Jessica ended up extending her trip by 5 days. She felt guilty about it, but Maya had texted her saying, "Stay as long as you want. You deserve this," and her few client meetings could be handled over video chat. Those 5 days felt like a lifetime and an instant all at once. She and Ben fell into an easy rhythm: mornings at the beach, afternoons exploring or reading on the terrace, evenings cooking together or finding new restaurants. They talked about everything. Ben told her about the pressure of keeping his company growing, about the employees who depended on him, about his fear that he'd lost sight of why he'd started building in the first place. Jessica told him about the terror of leaving her stable job, about the doubt that plagued her at 3 in the morning, about her need to prove that she could make it on her own. "You will," Ben said with such certainty that she almost believed him. On her last night, they went back to the first taverna where they'd had lunch, the one with the incredible moussaka. The owner recognized them and gave them the best table, right at the edge of the terrace with an unobstructed view of the sunset. "I'm coming with you tomorrow," Ben said over dinner. "Back to the States. I'll fly to Boston, help you get settled, and then head to New York. You don't have to do that. I want to. I'm not ready to say goodbye, and 3 weeks in a villa by myself sounds depressing now that I know what it's like to be here with you." Jessica felt tears prick her eyes. "What are we doing, Ben? What do you mean? This is crazy. 2 weeks ago, I didn't know you existed. Now I can't imagine my life without you in it. How did that happen? I don't know, but I'm not questioning it. He reached across the table and took her hand. I'm falling in love with you, Jessica. Maybe I already have. And I know that's fast and probably foolish, but it's the truth. Her heart felt too big for her chest. I'm falling in love with you too. It terrifies me. Good. If it didn't scare you, it wouldn't be worth doing. They spent that last night making love and talking until dawn, neither of them wanting to sleep and waste their remaining hours. When they finally boarded the plane in Athens the next afternoon, exhausted and rumpled, Jessica felt like she was leaving a piece of herself behind on the island. But Ben was beside her, his hand clasped in hers, and that made all the difference. Boston felt gray and cold after the brilliant white and blue of Santorini, even though it was technically still summer. Ben helped Jessica carry her luggage up to her third-floor apartment, a small one-bedroom in Back Bay that she loved despite its size. This is perfect for you, he said, looking at the art prints on her walls, the overflowing bookshelves, the cozy furniture. Very you. It's small. It's perfect, he repeated and kissed her. He stayed for 2 days and they explored Boston like tourists. Jessica took him to her favorite coffee shop, the gallery where she'd held her first exhibition, the park where she liked to run. Ben asked to see her office, and she took him to the small suite she rented in a building near Newberry Street. It was just 2 rooms and a reception area, but she decorated it carefully and it felt professional and welcoming. This is impressive, Jess, Ben said, studying the portfolio samples she'd framed on the wall. You've worked with some serious collectors. I've been lucky. The museum connections helped. It's not luck. You're talented. When he left for New York, Jessica felt his absence like a physical ache. They talked every night and he texted her throughout the day photos of his office, jokes, random thoughts. She sent him pictures of pieces she was considering for clients, and he always had thoughtful feedback. They made it work. Ben came to Boston every weekend, or Jessica went to New York. She met his sister, Claire, who was visiting from Chicago and who hugged Jessica like they'd known each other for years. He met Maya, who pulled Jessica aside and said, "Okay, I get it now. He's perfect for you." 2 months after Santorini, Ben called her late on a Thursday night. "What are you doing tomorrow?" "Working. I have a client meeting in the afternoon." "Why? Cancel it. Come to New York." "Ben, I can't just cancel, please. I need to show you something." There was something in his voice that made her agree. She rescheduled the meeting and caught an early train to New York the next morning. Ben picked her up at Penn Station, looking slightly nervous, which was unusual for him. "Where are we going?" she asked as he drove through Manhattan. "You'll see." They ended up in Brooklyn, in a neighborhood Jessica had always loved: tree-lined streets, brownstones, a mix of families and artists and young professionals. Ben parked in front of a beautiful building, 4 stories of warm brick with large windows. "What is this? Come inside." The ground floor was set up as a commercial space, empty but with good bones. Exposed brick, high ceilings, great light. Jessica walked through it, her practiced eye already seeing possibilities. "This would make an amazing gallery," she said. "Or a studio space." "That's what I thought." Ben was watching her carefully. "The upper floors are residential, 3 apartments fully renovated, good tenants, stable income. It's beautiful. Are you buying it?" "I already did. For you, for us." Jessica stopped walking. "What? The commercial space is for your business. You've been talking about wanting to expand, maybe doing exhibitions in addition to the consulting work. This could be it. And the apartment on the top floor has 3 bedrooms, an office, a roof deck. We could live there." "Ben, this is insane. We've been together for 2 months. Almost 4 if you count Santorini. Still, we haven't even talked about living together. So let's talk about it now." He stepped closer, taking her hands. "I love you, Jessica. I want to wake up with you every morning and fall asleep with you every night. I want to support your dreams the way you support mine. I want to build a life with you. This is too much. The building must have cost millions. It's an investment. Even if you say no, which I really hope you won't, the building will appreciate. But I'm not doing this to buy you or to control you. I'm doing this because I can, and because I want to give you the space to grow your business into everything you've dreamed about. Jessica looked around the space, her mind racing. She'd been thinking about expansion, about adding exhibitions to her consulting work. But she'd been planning to wait another year, save more money. This would let her do it now, take the leap without the financial risk. I'd pay rent, she said finally. Market rate for the commercial space. And half the expenses for the apartment. You don't have to. Yes, I do. If we're going to do this, we do it as partners. I won't be some kept woman in your building. Ben smiled, and she could see the relief in his eyes. Partners. I like the sound of that. I'd need to renovate the gallery space, design it properly. Whatever you want. And I'm keeping my apartment for another 6 months just in case. Just in case what? In case you decide you hate living with me. In case this doesn't work. Ben pulled her close, his arms solid around her. It's going to work. I promise you, Jessica, I'm in this for the long haul. She looked up at him, at this man who'd come into her life so unexpectedly and turned it upside down in the best possible way. Okay, let's do it. Moving in together was an adjustment. They were both used to living alone, having their own space and routines. Ben worked long hours and traveled frequently. Jessica was building her business and couldn't always drop everything when he was home. They had their first real fight about it 6 weeks after she moved in. Ben wanted her to come to a business dinner, and she'd had to say no because she was meeting with a major collector who was only in town that night. I'm not asking you to give up your work, Ben said, frustrated. I'm asking you to make time for mine occasionally. I do make time. I've been to 4 events with you this month, but this meeting could change everything for my business. You of all people should understand that. I do understand. I just miss you. We live together, but I feel like I barely see you. Jessica softened. I miss you too. I'm sorry. I'm just so focused on making the gallery launch perfect. They worked it out, found a better balance. Ben made an effort to be home for dinner more often. Jessica blocked out time in her schedule that was just for them. They learned to communicate better, to ask for what they needed instead of expecting the other to guess. The gallery opened in March, 8 months after they'd moved in together. Jessica had spent weeks agonizing over every detail: the lighting, the layout, the inaugural exhibition. She'd chosen to showcase emerging artists, a mix of painters and sculptors and photographers whose work she believed in. The opening night was packed. Maya flew in from Boston. Claire came from Chicago. Ben's business partner, a sharp woman named Patricia who Jessica had come to really like, showed up with her husband. And collectors came, serious people with money who walked slowly through the space, studying the pieces, asking questions. Jessica was so nervous she felt sick, but Ben stayed close, his hand on her back, steady and reassuring. You did this, he murmured in her ear. Look at what you built. By the end of the night, she'd sold 6 pieces and had serious interest in 4 more. Several collectors asked about future exhibitions, about her consulting services. It was more than she dared to hope for. After everyone left, Jessica stood in the middle of the gallery, looking at the art she'd chosen, the space she'd created. Ben came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Proud of you, he said. I couldn't have done this without you. Yes, you could have. It just would have taken longer. This is all you, Jess. Your vision, your hard work, your talent. She turned in his arms, overwhelmed by love for this man who supported her ambitions and celebrated her successes, and never made her feel like she had to choose between her career and their relationship. I love you. I love you too. They got engaged in Santorini, almost exactly a year after they'd first met. Ben had suggested they go back for a vacation, and Jessica had jumped at the chance. They stayed at Villa Artemis again, and everything was familiar and perfect: the view, the food, the way the light turned golden in the evenings. On their third night, they went back to the taverna where they'd had their first lunch. The owner remembered them and fussed over them, bringing extra dessert and pressing free wine on them. After dinner, they walked along the cliff path, hand in hand, the stars brilliant overhead. I want to ask you something, Ben said, stopping at a viewpoint they'd visited several times that week. Jessica's heart started pounding. Okay. A year ago, I came here because I was lost. I didn't know what I wanted or where I was going. And then you stumbled into my villa and everything changed. He took both her hands in his. You make me laugh. You challenge me. You've helped me remember that there's more to life than just work and achievement. You've made me happier than I knew I could be. Ben, let me finish. I know we haven't been together that long by traditional standards, but I know what I feel and I know what I want. I want you, Jessica. I want to marry you and build a life with you and grow old with you. He pulled a ring box from his pocket and dropped to one knee. Will you marry me? The ring was perfect, a sapphire the color of the Aegean Sea, surrounded by small diamonds. Jessica's eyes filled with tears as she looked at it, then at Ben, who was watching her with such hope and love that she could barely breathe. Yes, she said. Yes, absolutely yes. He slipped the ring on her finger and stood, pulling her into a kiss that felt like a promise, like a beginning, like coming home. In the distance, the taverna owner had come out onto his terrace and was applauding. Other people joined in, strangers who'd witnessed the moment, and Jessica laughed through her tears. They got married the following autumn in a small ceremony at the Brooklyn Botanic Garden. Just close family and friends, nothing fancy or overdone. Claire was Jessica's maid of honor, and Ben's business partner Patricia stood up for him. Maya gave a speech that had everyone laughing and crying. Jessica wore a simple silk gown and Ben wore a dark suit, and when they exchanged vows, his voice shook with emotion. I promise to support your dreams, he said. To love you through the good days and the hard ones, to be your partner in every sense of the word, to never take you for granted, to always come home to you. Jessica was crying openly by the time she said her own vows. I promise to choose you every day, to build a life with you that's full of love and laughter and adventure, to support you the way you support me, to be honest with you even when it's hard, to love you with everything I have. They honeymooned in Greece, of course a week in Santorini, then island hopping to places they'd never been. It was magical and romantic and perfect. But the best part was coming home to Brooklyn, to their apartment and their life together, and realizing that the vacation romance they'd stumbled into had become something real and lasting and true. Jessica's gallery continued to thrive. She added a second exhibition space 2 years after the first, and her reputation in the art world grew. She worked hard, but she also made sure to maintain balance, to not let her business consume her the way her old museum job had. Ben supported every decision, celebrated every success, and held her when things went wrong. Ben's business continued to grow too, but he was more selective about projects, more intentional about his time. He turned down deals that would have required too much travel. He made sure to be home for dinner most nights. He and Jessica traveled together when they could, mixing business trips with pleasure. They talked about kids from the beginning. Both wanted them, but they also wanted to wait until the time was right. Jessica wanted her business more established, and Ben had a major project wrapping up. They agreed to revisit the conversation in a couple of years, but life had other plans. Jessica found out she was pregnant on a random Tuesday in May, 3 years after they'd gotten married. She'd been feeling off for a few weeks, tired and queasy, but she'd chalked it up to stress. Maya was the one who'd suggested she take a test, and when the two pink lines appeared, Jessica had stared at them for a full minute before calling Ben. "Can you come home?" she said when he answered. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" "I'm fine. I just need you to come home." He must have heard something in her voice because he said, "I'm on my way." 20 minutes later, he burst through the door, slightly out of breath. "What's going on?" Jessica handed him the pregnancy test. He looked at it, looked at her, looked at the test again. "Is this real?" "I took 3. They're all positive. We're having a baby." His voice was full of wonder. "We're having a baby. I know we weren't planning this yet," but Ben kissed her, cutting off her words. When he pulled back, he was smiling so wide she thought his face might split. "This is perfect. You're perfect. We're having a baby." Pregnancy was harder than Jessica expected. She was sick for months, exhausted all the time, and her body changed in ways that made her feel foreign to herself. But Ben was patient and loving through all of it. He rubbed her feet when they swelled, held her hair when she threw up, and told her she was beautiful even when she felt like a whale. Their daughter was born on a snowy January evening after 12 hours of labor that left Jessica exhausted and exhilarated. Ben cried when the doctor placed the baby in his arms, and Jessica fell in love all over again with her daughter, with her husband, with the family they'd created. They named her Julia, after Jessica's grandmother. The first year of Julia's life was the hardest and best year of Jessica's life. She was sleep-deprived and overwhelmed and constantly worried she was doing everything wrong. But she was also happier than she'd ever been. Watching Ben with their daughter, the way he held her so carefully, the silly songs he sang, the patience he showed during 3 a.m. feedings made Jessica's heart ache in the best way. She'd reduced her hours at the gallery, hiring a manager to handle day-to-day operations so she could spend more time at home. It was an adjustment, letting go of some control, but it was also freeing. She realized that she'd built something sustainable, something that could thrive even when she wasn't there every minute. Ben had done the same, delegating more to his team. They'd talked about it and decided that they both wanted to be present for Julia's childhood, to not miss the important moments because they were too focused on work. On Julia's first birthday, they had a small party at their apartment. Meyer and Claire and a few close friends came, and Julia toddled around in a purple dress, delighted by all the attention. Ben stood next to Jessica, his arm around her waist, watching their daughter. "Remember when you accidentally broke into my villa?" he said. Jessica laughed. "Best wrong turn I ever took. I knew that first morning at breakfast. I looked at you and something in my chest just clicked into place. I'd never felt that before." "I felt it too. I tried to tell myself it was just vacation romance, that it wouldn't last, but even then I think I knew." Ben kissed her temple. "Think you'll keep me around, I suppose. You're pretty useful to have around. Useful, that's romantic." "You want romantic? Okay. You're my home, Bennett Xavier. You and Julia. Everything I need right here in this messy, chaotic, perfect life we've built. Better. Much better." He turned her to face him, ignoring the party happening around them. "I love you. Thank you for saying yes that night at the wrong villa. Thank you for taking a chance on us." "Always," Jessica said. "I'll always say yes to you." They had 2 more children over the next 5 years, a son, Jack, and another daughter, Lily. The apartment in Brooklyn got more crowded and chaotic, full of toys and laughter and the beautiful mess of family life. Jessica's gallery continued to flourish, becoming one of the most respected small galleries in New York. Ben's business evolved too, focusing more on sustainable development and affordable housing, projects he felt passionate about. But the best moments weren't the professional successes or the accolades. They were the ordinary ones: family dinners at the kitchen table, Saturday mornings at the park, bedtime stories and scraped knees, and the everyday magic of watching their children grow. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Ben surprised Jessica with a trip back to Santorini. They left the kids with Claire, who'd moved to New York the year before, and flew to Greece for a week alone. Villa Artemis looked exactly the same. The view still took Jessica's breath away. They fell back into the rhythm they'd found that first week: lazy mornings, long afternoons, romantic dinners. But it was different now, richer because they had a decade of history between them, 3 children, a life they'd built together. On their last night, they sat on the terrace where they'd had that first breakfast together, drinking wine and watching the sunset. "Do you ever regret it?" Jessica asked. "All of this happening so fast. We barely knew each other before we jumped in." Ben was quiet for a moment, thinking. "No. Not for a second. We could have taken it slower, dated for years before getting engaged, waited longer to get married or have kids. But I don't think it would have changed anything fundamental. I knew what I felt for you from the beginning. The rest was just details. I'm glad I broke into your house. I'm glad you did too. Best home invasion ever." Jessica laughed and leaned into him, feeling the solid warmth of him against her. 10 years ago, she'd come to this island looking for a break from her life, a chance to rest and recharge. She'd never expected to find love. She'd never expected that a vacation romance would follow her home and turn into forever. But here they were, a decade later, and she couldn't imagine any other life. The wrong villa had led her to the right person, and everything that followed had been better than anything she could have planned. "I love you," she said. "I love you too. Here's to the next 10 years, and the 10 after that, and every year after that." They sat there as the sun sank below the horizon, painting the sky in impossible colors. 2 people who'd found each other by accident and chosen each other every day since. The vacation was ending, and they'd go back to their real life in Brooklyn, the kids and the businesses, and all the beautiful, messy chaos of family. But they'd carry this with them too, the memory of where it all started, the reminder that the best things in life were often the ones you never saw coming. Jessica thought about the woman she'd been 10 years ago, exhausted and uncertain, stepping into the wrong villa and meeting a stranger who'd change her life. If she could go back and tell that woman what was coming, the love, the marriage, the children, the full, rich life they'd build together, she wasn't sure she'd believe it. But it had all happened. The millionaire she'd met on vacation had followed her home, and she'd followed him right back. They'd taken the leap together, and it had been worth every moment of fear and uncertainty. As they walked back inside, hand in hand, Jessica knew that this was what happily ever after looked like. Not perfect, not always easy, but real and true and filled with love. And she wouldn't change a single thing.